Okay, let's get to work here. This is video number 54. It's about surface area. I'll go into a little detail, and today is 420. All right, so on your upcoming test, they're going to ask quite a few questions about surface area. So I'll make sure I give you assignments where you can practice doing this. Of course, it's a good idea to establish the vocabulary and make sure, hold on a second here, let's get this up a little bit more. Okay. Establish the vocabulary so that you can at least understand the questions. So let's start with the first term here that occurs on the test quite a few times, lateral, okay? So lateral literally means sideways, and in the math that we're doing, it's the side surface areas of a figure. Example, I'm going to make a rectangular prism here. I did teach you how to do that when we had classes. So the lateral area would be 1, 2, 3, 4 sides. Okay? The lateral surface area would be the area on the first sides, excluding the front and the back. Okay? If I did a tent, okay? Whoops. Okay, there we go. The lateral area would be 1, 2, 3 sides, the lateral part on the tent. And they call it the lateral faces, all right? And the other two faces, like I mentioned, wouldn't be considered part of the lateral area. So make a note of that. It does come up on the test. I'll probably talk about it a little bit when I start doing some problems, especially tomorrow. But that's what's going on when they use the word lateral faces. Side faces, faces on the side. And lateral surface area follows instantly from that. And we're going to do a problem like this pretty soon. Imagine a soup can, and you peel off the label. And when you peel off the label, you're going to get a rectangle. You should think about what I just said for a second. So the lateral surface area would be the area that you actually peeled off, not counting the circles on the top and the bottom. So that's just a definition. That's what they're talking about when they're using the vocabulary. It's particularly the Regents vocabulary. They don't use it on the Common Core, but half your questions on the test are from the Regents. So imagine one more time, maybe a little slit, a slit here with a knife or something, and I peel off the label of this soup can, and the resulting, when I peel off the paper, it's just going to be this rectangle, which would constitute its lateral surface area. There'll be an assignment tomorrow. I'm going to do a problem shortly on that. Okay? And then we go to the next word, which says right rectangular prism, a right cylinder. They love to use those words. And right just means it forms a right angle. Okay? So there we go. That's what they're talking about, a right rectangular prism. When they talk about a right cylinder, they're just saying that it's sliced, it's cut, so that the area right, the part right next to the top forms a right angle. And so you might ask, well, what is not a right prism or a right cylinder? Well, say I had this soup can or this cylinder, and I cut it in a slanted way. Then what would be left would be looking something like this. And it's interesting to note, if I did that, this becomes an ellipse, much like the orbit of the Earth. So all the math that we're doing, we're assuming that if you cut the can and you form any kind of right cylinder or any kind of object that's right, it's forming 90-degree angles when you cut it. So we'll talk a little bit more about slicing in another circumstance here, but let's just go over one more word that comes up here, and these are vertical horizontal planes. So remember, we talked about this when we did transformations. A plane is a two-dimensional object. So imagine that I stuck a plane and the plane just splits this, okay? And it splits it, let's do it this way, and it splits it so that, like a loaf of bread, it cuts it in half. And the bigger plane that does that is doing the splitting. So again, I could draw another one. I'm not a good artist, but that's the idea. If we split this again, we'd be splitting it with a plane like this, and it would just be like a giant slicer or a knife. So to have a plane cut an object, here it is again maybe, as you look at it, and we're just slicing the object, and what's in the object here is the way it was sliced. Imagine a birthday cake. I take a birthday cake, I'm drawing the cylinder here, I'm drawing it here, and this is a birthday cake, and if I cut it in half with a plane, imagine a big plane, a big knife, and what comes out? Well, if you think about it, a rectangle comes out. So these are ideas that I'll go into a little more detail later, but these are just vocabulary words that you want to know. You can imagine a plane like the big, huge axes or knives that they use in a butcher shop, or the guillotine that the French use to behead people, just going down like that, or just a knife slicing an object. And if you slice it at right angles, the surface area is called right, where it comes from a right angle, right triangle. And they use that all the time. So don't be confused by that use of words. And do forgive my use of my artwork here, my use of artwork. I'll go into it again, but I just wanted to make sure that that was clear there. So I'm going to erase this now. I'll try to come up with a problem like they do, but mostly it's just like you would do in art where you get perspective. You'll get 4 or 5 questions like that, where you imagine slicing an object and you ask what the horizontal, either vertical or horizontal piece would look like when you cut it. Now notice when I did this one here, it was not vertical or horizontal. It was slanted, and it formed a ellipse, as I pointed out. However, if I just cut it horizontally in half, it would have looked just like a smaller stump. And in fact, we did something like that when we did a cone, and we just cut it horizontally. There we go. And again, this is a horizontal slice, or a plane, if you like, that goes through it, cutting it horizontally. Notice if I didn't do it horizontally in a right angle, I'll change it now, and it would form an ellipse. And that's the big point. I don't know why they go through all the trouble for it when there's so many other things we could use. But if I don't cut it horizontally, if I don't cut it straight at a right angle on the top, then a different object is formed here. So we'll put that little feather in our cap. I'm going to erase this, and I'm going to do 2 problems, okay? Both of them are easy problems. You should be able to do them easily. I'm going to have them on your assignment tomorrow, so you'll get to see them done twice. I'll do this now so that you can see what I'm doing. Let me clear all this out. Sorry for the lack of artwork, but a lot of this stuff you probably got in your art class when they talk about perspective and things of that nature. So let's get to work here, and I want to do a problem where I'm giving a rectangular prism. So now we understand why they say a right rectangular prism. And I'll review 7th grade math here, okay? And I'll say that the length is 7, the height is 4. Notice you don't have to worry about radicals anymore. They're not on the test. I think there's one question where a radical pops up. And I'm asked to find the surface area. So as you know, to find the volume is mad easy. It's just 7 times 4 times 5. And you don't need calculator to do that. That's 20 times 7. It's 140 cubic units. I'm sure you all see that. That's kind of easy to do. And to find the surface area, I'm just going to multiply the length times the width, so that gives me that, and 2 times, so that's the top and the bottom. Again, this was explained to you in 7th grade. And then there's the height times the width, but twice, of course, right? And that would be this guy and this guy here. There's the height. And finally, what am I missing? Well, the height times the length. So those would be, there we go, the lateral flaps. And that would be 2 times length times height. Okay? So in this particular case, since the length is 7, you have 2 times 7 times 5 plus 2 times 4 times 5. Finally, plus 2 times 7. What is it here? Times 4. And I took the liberty of doing that for you. That comes out to, as I see over here, 160 square units. Okay? That's 7th grade math. Barely worth our mention, but I certainly want to make sure that you understand how to do that. Save the video if you forgot all your 7th grade math over here. Okay, so now a question to ask that's a little more 8th graderish, although still very easy, is they're going to say, I have this shoebox, this right rectangular prism. Again, why is it right? Because the sides form right angles. They could be slanted, and then it would be a different kind of math. Probably not that interesting. And they tell you that the, let's see what we got here. The width is 3. What else do we got here? The height is 2. The numbers really don't matter. They're just arbitrary numbers. And the length we don't know. Okay? So how would you solve that problem? Well, we'll just write out what we know. We know we have 2, and any order, by the way. I'm doing this a different way. 2 times height times width. Okay? Oh, and they have to tell you one more bit of data here. They tell you that the surface area equals 72 square units. That's important, okay? I'll just write that down. And then you have 2, because we're doing both sides there. And let's see what we got here. We got the height, which is 2 times the length, okay? And finally, plus 2 times 3. Is that right? Yeah. Times the length again, and that all equals 72. So that's so easy. I mean, we could be doing that the first day of school if we wanted to. But they ask it on the test, so I want to make sure that I go over it. I'll give you a problem like that tomorrow. So that's 12 plus 4L plus 6L equals 72. And I'll take the opposite of 12 on both sides. So I end up with 10L. Obviously, I'm adding my terms, equals 60, so that the length equals 6. They'll ask that on your test, so make sure you paid attention to me there. I'll give you one tomorrow. All right, we're up to 14 minutes. Let me upload this, and then I want to do a problem with the lateral area of a soup can. Okay? So let me just turn this one off, and I'll get the next video out in a second.